Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining me today for this really exciting program on how to get from where you are to where you want to be. I will be sharing with you the proven strategies for building the kind of life, the lifestyle, career, and future that you've been desiring to have. I'm Whitney Wiley, founder and CEO of Shifting into Action, and again, thank you. So I have a couple of questions for you. Is your life feeling a bit stagnant right now? Like you just are going through the motions every day and nothing is really changing? Well, today I'm going to take you through a process that will help you start dreaming again. This is a proven process that will move you from where you are to where you want to be. And these proven strategies I'll be sharing are already being used by top achievers around the world, people who are wildly successful in business, philanthropy, sports, entertainment, science, and more. They've got awesome lifestyles. They have terrific relationships, fascinating causes that they really care about, all the money they need, and of course, they've got the freedom of making their own schedule to focus on the things they want to do. Don't you want that? Well, I want that for you. That's why I'm so happy to have you here on the webinar with me to go through this proven formula. It really is as simple as following the steps. And the good news, there are only 4 steps in all. So in the free workbook that came with this webinar that I hope you've already downloaded and printed out, you'll find worksheets covering the 4 steps for you to do on your own time. Today, just sit back, take notes, and write down any questions you have. So let's get started. The first step to creating a different future is actually an equation that changes everything. E plus R equals O, which stands for event plus response equals outcome. When I first learned this equation, I responded to life's events as they came up. If I got a flat tire, I responded with frustration. If my relationship was in trouble, I was miserable. If there was bumper-to-bumper traffic when I was running late for a meeting, I blamed the traffic. That was until I learned this equation for responding differently to life's events when they come up. Here's the reality. Events just happen. Often you can't control them because they materialize as a result of a specific situation, other people's emotions, timing, the economy, the weather, and a million other reasons that are outside of your control. As I stated before, events just happen. But what do most people do when they're faced with an event is that they feel harassed and stressed. They'll do anything to make the situation go away. That's reactionary, and unfortunately, it causes and produces an outcome they don't want. So what's their first inclination? To blame the event. You blame the event for the bad outcome. And unfortunately, blaming an event for producing a negative in your life puts all the power outside of your control. Why? Because there's nothing you can do about external events. They happen. That's reality. So the only way to get a good outcome is to respond in a way that will bring about the outcome you want. Here's an example. I spent 20 years in government affairs as a legislative advocate or a lobbyist, and I would educate and persuade, but I didn't cast the votes for whether legislation passed or not, and I certainly didn't sign them. I wasn't the governor. So after doing the best that I could, I had to let it go. It wasn't my responsibility, and I couldn't control what other people did. So I had to learn to stop responding by being angry when bills passed that I wanted dead or bills that I wanted to pass died. It was just part of the process, and no amount of griping on my part about it was going to change any of that. So today, the first step in this life-changing formula I've been talking about is to take responsibility for how you respond to events, mishaps, and catastrophes. But especially how you respond to opportunities that come up. Now, this doesn't mean you have to take responsibility for the event itself. That's usually out of your hands, but how you respond is 100% within your control. And that's the one leverage point where you can change what you do to get out of life. So taking more responsibility for our responses is the first and most important step towards creating more success in our lives. You can be thoughtful and deliberate, or you can be frustrated and reactive and emotional. It's always your choice. And what's so terrific about this concept is that it puts control back in your hands. This is especially important when opportunities come up, opportunities for you to get ahead or achieve what you want. Do you know that some people react emotionally when an actual opportunity presents itself? They complain that the timing isn't right, or that they're not ready, or that it will require a lot of work to respond to the opportunity, or that they don't have the money right now. You'd be surprised at all the complaints you'll hear from people when an opportunity arises. But here's the second point about the E+R=O equation. You have to give up blaming and complaining about the event and focus on how you'll respond appropriately and positively. Getting back to negative events that happen, what do most people do? They tend to complain to the wrong person. If I'm upset with my boss, Erica, because she's given me a ton of extra work to finish by tomorrow morning, I complain to my coworker, Steven. And if I'm upset with my spouse for spending on a major purchase without consulting me, I complain to my best friend. Well, that doesn't solve anything because you're complaining to the wrong person, and it's just wasted energy. I need to tell Erica that her timing or prioritization of projects is unworkable, and we need a better system of scheduling. I need to tell my spouse that I want to create a household budget so that major purchases are planned and paid for before we make the decision to buy. If I speak to the right person instead of the wrong person, the right person can do something about it. Because then they have the feedback that I would like something different. Of course, that person won't always grant my request, but at least communicating my request is the first step to actually getting what I want. This is just mature discussion. It's relationship management 101. But what about natural disasters and other events that don't involve individual people? I can respond to those events differently too. I can leave an extra 20 minutes early for meetings in case of traffic. I can keep up on the economic news and put extra savings aside if I hear a recession is predicted. And oh, by the way, a recession is always predicted. It's not a matter of if, but when. I can upgrade my skills so that I'm valuable to the next management team after my company gets bought out. And I can have the right kinds of healthy foods in my refrigerator so that I'm not eating on the run or grabbing junk food because I'm too busy to shop or cook. Instead of spending most of our time blaming things outside ourselves, the weather, our boss, the traffic, the economy, or the current president, we can take action in advance and be prepared. We can devise ways to increase our options should disasters occur. Whatever the world throws at us, we have to stop blaming something outside of ourselves. So taking more responsibility for our responses to events is the first and most important step toward creating more success in our Another important part of taking responsibility and not being a victim in life is watching out for yellow alerts. Yellow alerts are those little events or comments or recurring situations that you notice that act as clues that something is happening or is about to happen. That's not going to work, or something is not about to happen, is not going to work out in your favor. So here's an example. I hire Sarah as my personal assistant, and 2 months later, she says, I'm thinking about marrying a wonderful guy who lives in the Bahamas. But I ignore that. A month after that, Sarah says she's really falling in love with this guy and also hates the rainy weather here. A few weeks after that, she's buying bridal magazines and looking for real estate in Nassau. Then, all of a sudden, Sarah quits, and I'm surprised and unprepared and now scrambling for a new admin solution because I wasn't paying attention to the yellow alerts Sarah was giving me all along. There are lots of yellow alerts in your life, like your teenager comes home late night after night with a rank smell on his clothes, or the senior executives from the head office have been repeatedly visiting your department with no explanation, or your biggest client has been giving projects that are ideal for you to other consultants. And you wonder, what's going on here? But you don't want to say anything because that would be uncomfortable. Unfortunately, because mature conversations and inquiries and taking action are inconvenient or uncomfortable, we tend to deny the yellow alerts rather than act upon them in a timely fashion. The truth is, we're almost always given clues that something is coming. We are not the victims here. I want to direct your attention to 2 different exercises in the workbook that was included with our class. If you don't have your workbook yet, you can download it after this webinar is over by going to the link that was in your confirmation email when you registered for today's webinar. You won't need your workbook to do any of the exercises right now, but to get the most benefit from today's class, please, 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 please do the exercises sometime this week. It's really important that you connect these all together. And the first exercise I want to explain is something called a difficult or troubling situation analysis. Just like an unexpected event, we are all experience ongoing troubling situations from time to time. It's just part of life. No matter how well you prepare to avoid these hardships, they sometimes simply happen, and if not addressed, they can trouble you for years. It's far easier to resolve the situation than move on. What kinds of situations am I talking about? Well, a teenager or sibling who's not speaking to you, a financial difficulty that's getting worse every day, a health condition that's annoying, nagging, or uncomfortable, a tense atmosphere at the office, that sneaking suspicion that your spouse is being unfaithful. The key here is to respond to the event, whether it's sudden or long-standing, with a commitment to resolving it so that you can move on to creating better outcomes in the future. The difficult or troubling situation analysis will help you get past the current situation so you can focus on your success again. The exercise has full instructions in the workbook, but essentially asks you to analyze the payoffs or benefits that you get for keeping the situation like it is, the negative costs of keeping it like it is, your part in creating it or allowing it to be like it is, and actions that you can take or requests that you can make to get what you want instead. Don't fail to respond to a troubling situation because it's easier, more convenient, less comfortable, less confrontational. keeps the peace, or doesn't require taking risks. You have to take action now. Don't allow negative outcomes to be your fate. In the same way, you don't want to fail to respond to a yellow alert because it's easier, more convenient, or less confrontational. There's a second exercise in your book called, What Are You Pretending Not to Know? If you're experiencing negative outcomes in your life, perhaps you're ignoring the facts or excusing your part in creating a problem. To help you identify areas to take corrective action or take action to prevent eventual disaster, the exercise asks you to examine each area of your life and determine if there's a problem that you are ignoring or creating. You might be ignoring something to do with your health or your money or your family or your lifestyle or career. Whatever it is, this exercise will help you respond to the yellow alerts before something disastrous happens. The next critical step in the proven success formula is that you have to decide what you want. So one of the most amazing phenomena you'll ever experience as you incorporate this formula into your daily life is that unexpected phone call, the windfall financial benefit, or the uncanny new acquaintance that brings you exactly what you want in order to achieve your goals, almost as if it were planned. Perhaps it's the universe rewarding your new take action attitude by harnessing all the forces at its disposal. Or perhaps you've worked and have grown yourself to the point where you're finally ready to receive a benefit which has been waiting in the wings all along. But more probably, as researchers now believe, it may simply be a matter of your subconscious mind focusing on and recognizing opportunity when it arrives. Whatever the explanation, the reality is that what you want wants you. Your goals, desires, and needs are patiently waiting to gravitate towards you once you decide what you truly want. Of course, the main reason why most people don't get what they want is they haven't decided what that want is. They haven't defined their goals exactly in clear and compelling detail. After all, how else can your mind know where to begin looking, seeing, and hearing if you don't give it specific and detailed goals to achieve? There's a very powerful technique for helping you define what you want in vivid detail. I'll be talking about that technique in just a minute. But before defining the ideal life you want for yourself, here's a word of caution. Make sure that your wants are personally important to you, not to those you believe should be important, or those the world expects you to have, or something your mother wants you to focus on. But what's truly important to you from the deepest places in your heart. Unfortunately, the sad reality for most people is that they simply aren't honest with themselves. If they were, they would realize their shoulds are almost always less interesting and more hassle than what it is they really want. Here's an example. So many people who have become social media influencers or industry experts were working dull jobs and following a career that other people thought was fantastic, but their lives didn't really become thrilling or fulfilling or meaningful or even lucrative until they started a decorating blog or started consulting with small businesses or started writing cookbooks. Once they were living the life they truly wanted, all the necessary opportunities showed up, including, wait for it, the money. So one of the easiest ways to begin deciding what you truly want is to ask a friend to help you make a list. Have the friend continually ask you, what do you want? What do you want? And let this go on for about 10 to 15 minutes while jotting down your answers. You'll find the first ones you run through aren't all that profound. In fact, most people usually hear themselves saying, I want a Mercedes, I want a big house on the ocean, blah, 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 blah. But by the end of the 15-minute exercise, the real you will begin to speak. Things like, I want people to love me. I want to make a difference. I want to be significant in my field. These are wants that are true expressions of your heartfelt desires. So that's a quick exercise you can do with a friend, then trade places and help them make their own list of wants too. But to really create your definitive list, I want you to turn to the page in your workbook and find an exercise called the vision exercise. And it will help you decide what you want to be, do, and have in the seven major areas of your life. The vision exercise is located in your workbook, and this is an exercise you do privately. It's just you alone. And you start by putting on some relaxing music and sitting quietly in a comfortable environment where you won't be disturbed. Then close your eyes and ask your subconscious mind to give you images of what your ideal life would look like if you were living it exactly as you want. You will want to visualize your life in these 7 key areas: career and professional life, finances, recreation and free time, body and physical health, relationships, personal growth, community work. As you go through the exercises, you'll be defining what you want to be, do, and have in each of these 7 areas. There are ideas, prompts, and memory joggers in each section to help you think through your ideal life. But your subconscious mind already knows what you want, and it should be the ultimate source of ideas for you. Even if you don't have the workbook with you, let's just do a little bit of this exercise right now. So I want you to close your eyes and begin breathing deeply. Breathe in through your nose and out through your mouth. Take another deep breath. And another. Now, imagine you're in your ideal home environment. Where is it located? What is the view outside the windows? What are the main colors of the living areas? What kind of decor or art objects do you have in your home? Is there music playing in the background? How do you feel as you stroll through the rooms of your ideal home? Now, come back slowly and open your eyes. What you just did was an example of the vision exercise you'll be doing later in the workbook. It takes time, so don't rush it. If you don't immediately see images of the different areas of your life that are that's perfectly okay. It still works just as well if you're just thinking of the ideal elements versus actually seeing yourself in those environments. But let your mind wander a bit, dream a little. When the ideas come to you, write them down in the workbook. Many people set aside an evening to do the rest of this exercise. So tonight, after this webinar, is a great time to get started on this lengthy exercise. But it's an important one because what you come up with will ultimately form a goals list of things you need to work on. Okay, so here's some really good news. Those ones that you'll be identifying later in your workbook are achievable. In fact, for most everything we want, someone else has already done it, created it, owned it, or achieved it. So there's not much of what we want anymore that is so lofty it can't be accomplished. But the key to getting what you want, and here's step 3 in the formula that I first introduced way back in the beginning of this webinar, is to set goals around the things that you want to be, do, and have. And how do we set a goal? By writing it in such a way that it's specific and measurable. That is, someone other than you can know for certain whether you've achieved that goal or not. Let me give you an example. If you said, I want to own a house at the beach someday, that's a nice dream or a desire that you have. But to make it into a specific and measurable goal, you need more information. And you need to state it in a way that there is certainty you'll have the beach house one day. Like this: I will own a 4,000 square foot house on Pacific Coast Highway in Malibu, California by midnight, April 30th, 2025. Do you hear the difference? This second version of your goal tells your brain exactly what you want to achieve, and it's not just a vague, dreamy hope. If you want to retire early with millions of dollars invested, for example, state the exact amount you'll have invested on the exact date you plan to retire. As part of the vision exercise in the workbook, you'll be turning all of your wants into specific and measurable goals that you can begin working on and achieving, and that's an exercise 4. And here's a bonus idea. Why not create minimum goals, target goals, and outrageous goals? Whenever you write down your specific and measurable goals, set 3 different levels that you will achieve. Let's say you want to build a large savings account and get out of debt. A minimum goal might be putting together a $1,000 emergency fund in the next 30 days. A target goal might be to save up 3 to 6 months of living expenses in the next 8 months. And an outrageous goal might be to pay off all your consumer debt, including your mortgage, in the next 7 years. The outrageous goal is always something that would just blow your mind if you achieved it. Your target is usually something within your capabilities, and your minimum goal is something you're almost guaranteed to reach, but it gets you going and taking action. Whereas an outrageous goal might seem too overwhelming to even start. What happens with this minimum target outrageous formula is that most people will start with the minimum, then they get motivated and end up reaching their target very easily. Have you ever said, I'm just going to get rid of those old dishes stored in the garage, and then the next thing you know, you've cleaned the entire garage and even called a local charity to haul away a truckload of cast-offs? It was just a matter of getting started. You could even delegate the entire garage cleanup to a professional organizer or trade with a friend by doing something for them. That would achieve your target goal for certain. Sorry about that. While goal setting is an important step in achieving the wants on our dream list, most of the goals we set focus on improving our lives for the moment. Things like get the house painted or finish my sales report, clean out the laundry, lose 20 pounds. But what if instead you focused on a single goal that would up level everything you do, from your career to your career network to your income to your lifestyle? Wouldn't that be a goal worth pursuing with passion and vigor? Wouldn't that be something to focus on a little each day until you achieved it? Think about it. If you were an independent sales professional and knew you could get a substantial bonus commission and maybe even a promotion once you landed a certain number of customers, wouldn't you work day and night to achieve that goal? Or if you were a stay-at-home mom whose entire lifestyle and finances would change by earning an extra $3,000 a month, wouldn't you pursue every possible opportunity for side work or your own part-time business to achieve that goal? That's what I mean by a breakthrough goal. Something that changes your life, brings you new opportunities, gets you in front of the right people, and up levels every activity, relationship, or group you're involved in. What might your single breakthrough goal be? There's an exercise in the workbook that'll help you decide. But for the purposes of this webinar, whether you believe you can achieve it or not, what one single change in your career, business, lifestyle, or relationships would boost you to the next level? Is it landing a promotion? Changing jobs? Expanding your business? Maybe it's finding your soulmate. Qualifying for an award or going back to school. Maybe it's moving across country, retiring early, or just about any other goal. Take time later to think about your breakthrough goal. There's a page in the workbook to figure it out and jot it down. You can look for that in exercise 5. I want to finish our discussion of goal setting by talking about a technique that will help you achieve major goals in record time. It's a way to get your brain focused on assembling the resources, people, money, circumstances needed to bring about your everyday goals, and especially your breakthrough goal. It's called affirmations. Now, affirmations are vividly detailed statements of you living, working, and enjoying life as if your goals have already been achieved. Affirmations help the brain focus on bringing about your heartfelt desires. One example of an affirmation is, I'm happily depositing my first $100,000 royalty check as a best-selling author. Another affirmation is, I'm joyfully receiving the company's top sales award. So, how do affirmations work? Well, as scientists now know, the brain is a goal-seeking organism. It will, if you give it a compelling, colorful, crystal clear image of what it is you want, it will work night and day to create the opportunities, contacts, resources, and circumstances needed to achieve that vision. In fact, the brain has a special function called the reticular activating system that filters through the millions of impressions, images, messages, and thoughts it processes each day and passes to your conscious mind that contains very specific information that will help you reach your goals. For example, if you've ever thought about speaking at your industry convention as a way to boost your career, then immediately remembered you met the national education director last month at a trade show. That's your reticular activating system, bringing you ideas and contacts that can help you achieve your goal. Reciting your goals frequently throughout the day actually focuses your brain on the goals you want to achieve. So you want to write them out on index cards, note cards, your smartphone's wallpaper, on a sign at the bottom of your bathroom mirror, or any other places you see frequently. It's a way to constantly be focused on your most important goals. My best advice is to write out your specific and measurable goals on a 3x5 card. Then review the cards in the morning when you first wake up, and again at night just before you fall asleep. You don't always have to know how you'll accomplish the goal. In fact, that's not necessary. You just keep visualizing yourself in the future as if you've already achieved it. I mentioned using your phone's wallpaper. However, it's probably better to make the connection to the goal by writing them out. And you won't end up down a rabbit hole of distraction if you don't pick up your phone to recite your affirmations. It's also powerful to add color, sounds, emotions, and other sensory aspects to your visualization time. As you review your cards, try to experience the feeling of confidence as you deliver the keynote address at your industry's annual conference, or the scent of cinnamon rolls baking at the bed and breakfast hotel you recently opened, or the sound of waves breaking at the senior executives retreat in Hawaii, or the joy you'll feel as you're living out your dream career or professional accomplishment. Repetition is key, however. The workbook includes detailed guidelines to help you write powerfully effective affirmations for your unique situation, using your goals in previous exercises about what you want to be, do, and have. Look for exercise number 6. Of course, we've come to the most important step in the original 4-part formula I introduced at the beginning of this webinar. It's step number 4, and it's take action on your goals. Sometimes your biggest life goals seem so overwhelming. Though we may work hard at achieving them, too often we decide to put them off altogether until we have more time, more focus, more energy, more manpower, right? We're waiting for the perfect time. We rarely see our goals as a series of small tasks, but in reality, breaking down the goal into smaller tasks and accomplishing them a few at a time is precisely how any big goal gets achieved. By breaking down your goal into bite-sized pieces and baby steps, you can begin accomplishing the small tasks that you've determined will lead to achieving your goal. But beware. Preparing to move forward isn't the same as taking action itself. In other words, preparation, research, planning, getting it all perfect, these are all areas where people get bogged down and never actually start taking action. They're too busy getting ready. And what do you say? I'm getting ready to get ready, right? But one way that I recommend you actually start to take action on your goals is something I call chunking it down. If you had a target of saving up to 3 to 6 months worth of living expenses in an emergency fund, a sample goal that we mentioned earlier in the webinar, what steps could you take to pull that money together over the next 8 months? Could you, number one, determine the amount of money per month that you would need? Could you identify what portion of your current savings you might use for this special fund? Could you make a list of money sources to save, such as overtime pay or holiday bonus? Could you make a list of unused items you could sell on Craigslist or let go? Could you open a new bank account for this money before starting to earn more and sell things? Those 5 steps, which are essentially research and making lists and going to the bank, are all things you could do in just one day. And in fact, probably in one afternoon. By making lists of what needs to be done, you've effectively chunked down all the tasks into small steps that are doable and achievable, which leads me to a helpful strategy for taking action, and that is practice something called the rule of 5. The rule of 5 simply means that every day you do 5 specific things that will move your goal towards completion. Bigger goals might take longer, but the rule of 5 still applies. Do 5 things every day until your goal is achieved. Let's take buying a house in Hawaii, for example. That's a really big goal, right? But chunking it down and doing 5 things a day still applies. You have to find out where the best locations are, decide which island you want to live on, find out how much homes there cost, determine how much money you'll need to save, research where you can get your financing, decide where you'll get your furniture, determine the repairs and decorating budget you need, and on and on. Once you decide all these things and chunk each larger goal down into small steps, you can begin taking action on these steps. 5 steps a day until you reach your goal. Well, he didn't call it the rule of 5. A seminar leader I know once said, in order to arrive at the life of your dreams, you simply make a wish list, break down each wish on the list into steps you'll need to take to achieve it, choose a number of those steps to achieve each week or month or year, and then achieve them. That's the game plan we're talking about here for achieving the life of your dreams, for achieving virtually any impressive goal you've set for yourself. So a question that often comes up is whether there is something that hinders people from taking any action at all. And the answer to that is, of course. One thing is a feeling that they can't accomplish even the smallest of baby steps. They don't feel confident. Another is that they feel overwhelmed by the sheer amount of stuff that they already have to do. And a third is that they have to ask someone for something in order to move forward. And asking is something they're simply afraid to do. Well, let's address these obstacles now. I'm going to start with the second one I mentioned. People feeling overwhelmed by the amount of tasks they already have. And most of us have these incompletes and messes in our households, offices, relationships, families, finances, and other major areas of our lives. We've got overflowing closets and broken screen doors and 6 years worth of tax paperwork and bills that aren't filed, and a fight with our sibling that's still unresolved, and a nagging health condition that we need to address. And the list goes on and on. We have uncompleted tasks and messes that aren't cleaned up. So one way to stop feeling overwhelmed by what you already have to do is to clean up these messes and incompletes first. It's especially important to handle these incompletes because of what psychologists call attention units. You can only attend to 7 things at once. Beyond that, you just can't. So when you have a cluttered desk, when you're constantly seeing all these papers and unanswered letters and 3,000 emails in your inbox, I wish for 3,000 in my inbox. These things steal your focus away from the other things you want to accomplish. You look over your mental to-do list and think, oh, I should move that, or I should put that away. I need to answer that. The more incompletes you have in your life, the more your focus and creative energy gets fractured and scattered. The other reason it's important to clean up your messes and incompletes is that doing so builds self-confidence and self-esteem. When we have a lot of incompletes in our life, we're consciously or unconsciously judging ourselves as incomplete and incapable because we haven't completed them. Every time you look at these messes, they're reflecting back at us the message. You aren't handling me. We're either afraid to handle them or don't know how to handle them. And this fear and lack of knowledge compromises our feelings of competence. By handling the incompletes, we get more time in our lives to focus on those steps that will bring about the really important goals and dreams we have. So take the time to put all your incompletes and messes down on one list, either on paper or in your computer or your phone, laptop, wherever. Walk around the house and note things room by room. Go through your stack of bills to find anything that's not handled yet. Share with your spouse any family relationships that are in bad shape. Once you have all of these listed, then you can prioritize them. Then you can tackle one a month or one per quarter or however often you choose. You don't have to think about the others all the time because you know they're on a list and will be handled in the order of their importance. If you're so bold, you can even apply the minimum target outrageous model to the messes. What is the minimum goal or the smallest incomplete that you will commit to handling by this weekend? What's a larger mess or incomplete you could make a target goal to handle this month? And what's an outrageous goal you could handle, such as an incomplete home renovation over the next 90 days? Handling incompletes and messes boosts your confidence and creates available attention span in your life to tackle the 5 things a day you want to do to reach your really big goals. But let's address the third roadblock that keeps people from taking action on their goals. And that is they lack the confidence when asking for what they need from people who can help them reach their goals. Asking for the help you need is still a challenge that holds many people back. Why are people afraid to ask? Well, we're afraid of several things: looking needy, looking foolish, looking ignorant, but mostly we're afraid of experiencing rejection. We are afraid of hearing the word no. The sad thing is, when you don't ask, we're actually rejecting ourselves in advance. We're saying no to ourselves before anyone else even has a chance to. But here's an illustration to think about, an example. I can't get the word out. Here's an example to think about. If you apply to Harvard and you don't get in, you weren't going to Harvard before you applied, and you're not going to Harvard after you applied. Your life didn't get worse. And think about it. You have spent your whole life going to Harvard, and you already know how to handle that. Someone telling you no doesn't make your situation any worse. It just keeps it the same. Well, there's a specific science to asking for and getting what you want or need in the pursuit of your goal. Here are some quick tips to get you more comfortable with asking. Number 1, ask as if you expect to get it. That is, ask with a positive expectation. Ask from that place that you've already been given it. It's a done deal. Ask as if you expect to get a yes. Number 2, assume you can. Don't start with the assumption that you can't get it. If you're going to assume you can get an upgrade. Assume you can get a table by the window. Assume that you can return that item without a sales slip. Assume that you can get a raise or that promotion. Don't ever assume against yourself. Number 3, ask someone who can give it to you. Qualify the person. Determine for yourself, who would I have to speak to get this accomplished? Who is authorized to make a decision about that? Who do I have to speak with to get whatever it is you're asking for? Number 4, be clear and specific. Too many people are walking around wanting more money, more love, more help around the house, more recognition at work, more of this, that, and the other thing. But they're not being specific. Do you want enough money to retire? Do you want to go on a date night twice a month? Do you want the kids' bedrooms picked up every Friday and the laundry done by Saturday morning? If you're not sure about the specifics, do the research of what it takes and then make a specific request. Number 5, ask repeatedly. Never give up. Invoke your inner 2-year-old. Whenever we ask others to participate in the fulfillment of our goals, some people are going to say no. They have other priorities, commitments, and reasons not to participate. It's no reflection on you. Just get used to the idea that there's going to be a lot of rejection along the way to the brass ring. The key is not to give up. When someone says no, you say next, which brings me to number 6. Ask someone else. Remember, there are over 6 billion people on this planet. Someone else has enough authorization, is skilled enough, knowledgeable enough, emotionally invested enough, or otherwise capable of saying yes to you. Don't get stuck in your fear. Move on to the next person and the next person and the next until you connect with the person who can and will help you. It's a numbers game. Someone out there is waiting to say yes. We've come to the end of today's webinar, but I want to close with 2 things. Number 1, I want you to choose right now one thing you'll commit to doing to create the future you deserve, starting tonight. Whether it's complete the Decide What You Want exercise in the workbook, or write out your first 3x5 affirmation cards, or handle a difficult and troubling situation. Whatever it is, make a mental commitment now. You can share it with us by posting it on the chat board of this webinar. And remember, when we share our goals, they are more likely to be achieved. Secondly, one of the things I really enjoy doing is coaching and advising people in achieving their dreams, achieving their dream lives by setting goals and taking action. This webinar and the accompanying workbook are just a small part of what I do with my clients. I'd like to close with an invitation for you to contact me for any additional help that you need. Sometimes it's difficult to find a friend or family member to work on these life-changing concepts with you. They're not always supportive and may even be throwing roadblocks in your way. That's where I can help by being an outsider and coach to help you identify paths to reaching your goal. And as a thank you for registering and staying with this webinar to the end, I have 2 free gifts for you. First, you can get a copy of this presentation, a replay of the webinar that you can use when you are going through your workbook. Look for the follow-up email for that later. And to help you jumpstart your way to getting from where you are to where you want to be, I am also gifting you a free goal-setting strategy session and a week of free accountability calls. To claim your free gift, go to www.goforgoalsaps.com/Whitney Wiley. If you have questions or are interested in one-on-one or group coaching, contact me at whitney@shiftingintooaction.com or call 916-304-4742. I want to thank you again for joining me for today's webinar. It was a pleasure and my honor to share a pathway for you to get from where you are to where you want to be. Bye.